You believe the case was solved back in 2014. You've seen the headlines calling Jack the Ripper's identity finally revealed. Ask a British court today, though, and you'll get a very different answer. Officially, the case remains open, unsolved, and unconfirmed, more than 130 years after it began. In the autumn of 1888, 5 women were murdered across the Whitechapel district of East London. Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, Mary Jane Kelly. Each murder was more violent than the last. Letters signed Jack the Ripper arrived at newspapers and police stations, taunting investigators who had nothing solid to go on. No fingerprints, no forensics, no name that stuck. Scotland Yard investigated more than 100 suspects, doctors, sailors, a barber. None were ever charged. The case went cold and stayed cold for over a century. Then, in 2007, a British author named Russell Edwards bought a stained silk shawl at auction. He believed it had been recovered near Catherine Eddowes' body on the night she died in Mitre Square. He believed it still carried the killer's DNA. In 2014, 2 scientists tested it. Blood, semen, mitochondrial DNA, extracted from fibers over a century old. They compared the genetic sequence to living descendants of one name police had suspected back in 1888, Aaron Kosminski, a 23-year-old Polish barber living in Whitechapel at the time of the murders. The results were published in the Journal of Forensic Sciences in 2019. The sequence appeared to match. Newspapers called it proof, case closed. But was it? Mitochondrial DNA can't actually prove someone committed a crime. It can only rule people out, not confirm a single person did something, since the same maternal line sequence is shared by everyone descended from the same ancestor, potentially thousands of people who lived in London at the time. Independent scientists raised that exact objection almost immediately. There's a second problem, and it's even harder to explain away. No documented chain of custody connects that shawl to Mitre Square on the night Eddowes died. It surfaced in private hands generations later. Over more than 100 years, in unknown conditions, it could have picked up DNA from dozens of unrelated sources. Kosminski himself was never charged with anything. He was committed to a mental asylum in 1891, and he died there in 1919, without ever standing trial or answering a single question about that night. Victims' families have petitioned British courts multiple times to reopen an inquest using the DNA findings. Every request has been denied. As recently as 2023, England's Attorney General ruled there wasn't sufficient new evidence to justify it. So which is true? Did science quietly solve the most famous murder case in history, or did a headline convince the world a case was closed that a courtroom has never agreed to close? Here's what should stay with you. It doesn't matter how confident a press release sounds. Until a court rules otherwise, the identity of Jack the Ripper is not a settled fact. It's still, legally and officially, one of the coldest open cases on Earth. You believed the case was solved in 2014. It wasn't. It still isn't. And unless something changes, it may never be.